One thing that a lot of people are concerned about is the potential disruption that's going to come about with automation and AI. That a lot of these jobs, manufacturing jobs, Teamsters, all that stuff, is going to be eliminated. What do you, I mean? You're at the forefront of this, so how do you see this playing out, and what do you think that can be done to mitigate a lot of the loss of purpose that a lot of people are going to feel, loss of income? Obviously, universal basic income is being floated about, but that seems to me to only be part of the problem. Another big part of the problem is people losing a sense of purpose.
Yeah, now we're talking about something which is still pretty far in the future.
How far do you think it is?
Not very far.
Well, I mean, it's probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years type of thing.
Not far.
So we've got like immediate issues. We've got short-term issues that are, I don't know, 1 to 3 years. Medium-term issues like 5 to 10 years. Longer-term issues which are like maybe 20 years. Longer term, I think there is this question if you have AI and robotics, how do you find meaning in life?
1 to 3 years is immediate. 5 to 10 years is really near future. 20 years is still right around the corner. His version of far future, 20 years, no. The amount of change that happens in 20 years to make that point at 20 years be normal is extremely fast change in the next 20 years. Every year changing rapidly to where the change that is now become normal in 20 years is rapid change for the next 20 years.
The computer can do everything better than you can, and the robot can do everything better than you can. But we've got a long way to go before that, and and I do think it's like 80% likely to be a good outcome, like maybe 90. So, and I think everyone's going to have their own like personal robot, and I think at some point, like, wouldn't you want to have your own personal C-3PO R2-D2?
So it's going to be
That'd be
essentially
cool.
just like everyone has their own phone.
Yeah, everyone will have their own robot buddy. Like literally.
Within 20
it'd be
years.
great if it protected you. Like if you walk down the street of New York City and you have a Terminator with you.
I don't know the Terminator. Hopefully, we gotta avoid. We don't want this to be the plot of James Cameron. We want more Gene Roddenberry than James Cameron movie situation.
But it would be fascinating to watch some rich person walk down the street of New York City flanked by 2 giant Tesla robots, Jack Tesla robots
like
that would
RoboCop
protect
or something,
you.
but
Yeah,
it's just fully robots.
somebody fully robot there to protect you from a bad neighborhood.
Yeah,
That would be very interesting.
I mean, this
You
is
could potentially see that.
yeah.
Restaurants probably have no robot rules. You can't bring a robot.
Yeah, leave a robot.
Yeah,
stand
leave
outside
your
or
robot
something.
outside. Your robot standing by the table.
Man, the future's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be really unpredictable. Like I don't think. I mean, you probably have a pretty good sense of it, but I think most people don't understand the wave that's coming.
Yeah.
And I was kind of completely drown society and change it forever.
Yeah.
Even Elon is hesitating to engage in the amount of change. Joe Rogan is pushing the amount of change. Elon is slightly hesitant to acknowledge that amount of change because he's at the forefront. He's the head of that change. That is significant. I love Elon, but at the same time, a little bit of hesitancy there. There's a little bit of maybe he's taking us in a direction that we don't want to go, and he knows it, but he owns the company and he's smart enough to create the business opportunity, and that is overriding everything else in his system, in his body.
We have, like I said, it's not like it's not gonna happen like overnight, but it's 20 years from now. I'm like, I think it's still like 20 years from now. I think there's gonna be more humanoid robots than there are humans.
Did you hear that? And 20 years from now, that is, I'm 57. 20 years ago, I was 37. That seems like yesterday to me. It seems like maybe not yesterday. It seems like maybe 2 years ago that I was 37. It's not that far. And yet, in his version of our future, in 20 years, there's going to be more robots than humans. He knows what's going to happen. Society is about to change, and it is going to be massive in the next 20 to 30 years by the head of the future, basically.
Really?
Yes.
More humanized. Well, that's so crazy. Like, so that's like more guns. We have more guns than people in America. We'll have more robots than people in America as well.
Yes.
You have a bunch of old robots nobody wants anymore.
I guess. Early versions or something.
In a historical timeline, 20 years in the past has not been that big of a deal. You know, I mean, this is a big deal, but you go from like 1900, 1920, not that big of a deal. 1920, 1940, kind of a big deal. 1940, 1960, things start getting weird. 60 to 80, wow, that's a big difference. 80 to 2000, holy shit, now you have the internet. 2000 to 2020, whoa, this is nuts. You have propaganda, social media, YouTube, streaming. 20 years from now, like, what are we even talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't come up with this at the very moment. There is no way that they did this show without sketching out what they were going to talk about and points they were going to make. These are extremely pinpointed points made that would be difficult for a lot of people to come up with on the fly. Don't think for a moment that they didn't sketch out a diagram for where they were going to go with their dialogue. Notice that we're almost at the end, and they're pretty much talking about the most important thing that this interview has to offer at the very end, and a ton of big points are being made at the very end.
It's going to be that much of a shift. Like, it's all accelerating. And we're in the middle of it, so it's very difficult to sort of like feel it while it's happening. Because it kind of just feels like life. And you just get adapted to the changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people's phones at this point are a supercomputer in their pocket, like an oracle that can answer any questions. People just take it for granted.
Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah.
They get mad if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like Louis C.K.'s joke about using your phone when you're on a plane. Ah, fucking piece of shit. You're in the sky. You're floating in the air.
And now it will work with Starlink too.
What's that?
It will work with Starlink. The Starlink,
Yes.
the Starlink connection, it'll be like being on the ground.
Well, I was telling you how I used Starlink when I was in Utah. I was in the mountains of Utah. There was
Yeah.
no cell phone service anywhere near. And we had full YouTube. We had text messages, FaceTime, everything, phone calls. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And it's this big as that cigar box.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's so light. When I brought it out there, like, that's it, or this is it. Let's just
Yeah.
plug it in. And the guys I was in camp with were like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
The whole camp was like sharing it. So like 10 people
Yeah.
using the Wi-Fi signal.
Right.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
And then, that's the beginning. I mean, what you're at right now is like what version? This is Starlink Mini, right? So this is like a very small version. How much smaller can it scale down from that?
Well, there's a certain area that you need. Like the bigger the area, the more you can. Like your
Higher bandwidth.
Yeah, because you're like trying to catch these like photons essentially. So you can think of the area of the end.
All right, he's about to go into some technical stuff. the thing you need to take away from this is that Elon Musk is literally maybe the most powerful individual human being on planet Earth. He has Starlink, which is a super powerful internet providing source for literally in the entire world. He owns Twitter. Again, an information source for the entire world. He's building AI robots, and in 20 years he predicts that there's going to be more AI robots than human beings. This is scary stuff.
The antenna is like the more area you have, the more photons you can catch. But we have a direct-to-cell capability as well. We've been launching that. We'll turn on probably in a few months. That'll actually connect directly to a cell phone unmodified. But because the cell phone is a much worse antenna than a dedicated antenna, it'll be about 100 times less bandwidth. But still, you'll be able to like do text messages, pictures, like medium resolution videos, that kind of thing.
One of the cool things about the new phone, the new iPhone, the iPhone 16, I got it and I was in the mountains last month and I was text messaging with satellites.
Yeah.
iMessages.
Right.
And receiving them.
But just text.
Yeah, just text.
Yeah.
But still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what are we going to be looking at 100 years from now? I mean, when you...
Around 100 years from now, I hope civilization's around. Yeah, that'll be
Holy crap.
Yeah.
yeah.
What are the chances that 100 years
Going
from now?
back 10
when
seconds.
Around 100 years from now, I hope civilization's around.
That was a comment from one of the most brilliant people on planet Earth. In 100 years from now, I hope civilization is still around. That is powerful.
Yeah, that'll be a win.
Yeah.
That would be a win.
What are the chances that we fuck this whole thing up?
Big time, I bet.
50%?
It's hard to say. I mean,
Is he?
I guess not. Like, I don't think civilization will be totally destroyed.
Is he fighting honesty, or is he fighting the need to be truthful? He's got both sides to him, right? I think so. That's my opinion. He's got the ultra honest, humanistic point of view, and he's got the multi-hundred billionaire, I'm in control of a lot of things mentality, and I'm smarter than almost everyone on the planet mentality. Both things are happening here. Let's see what he says.
This is like some really massive global thermonuclear war. I mean, Stephen Hawking, he would say that there was like at least 1% chance of total annihilation every century. That was his rough estimate. But there's a much bigger chance of civilization being less capable than it is today. So you say like, well, because you look at, say, well, these various civilizations throughout history, whether it's like ancient Sumerians or the Egyptians, the Romans, like there's like a life cycle to civilization. They reached a peak and then they started subsiding. So I think a bigger question is like, well, will our technology level be better or worse than it is today in 100 years? I think it's probably going to be better.
I think he's fighting himself right there.
I think, but any estimates are going to be so. There's so many dependencies. Like an estimate, I think is. Well, I'm not sure it has any meaning because it's like there's so many things that can happen in 100 years.
Well, the logical hope is always
True.
that people pay attention to history and they recognize the patterns and how civilizations have collapsed.
Yeah.
And they recognize what's going wrong in the current society and say, we have to do our best to mitigate this. And we've seen this happen before. Let's course correct and let's sort of manage what we've got here now and maintain what we've got here now, because it's pretty extraordinary.
Looking at our current governmental system, I don't see that happening.
Yes.
This is what we're hoping for with this election. This is what we're hoping for with the future, is that people can see we are on a bad path and something can be done right now. And it might be the only moment in history where this is possible, because if they do lock the country down and make it so that voting is kind of bullshit, you're only voting for primaries,
Exactly.
and the people that they put in the primaries, they're controlling that in the first place.
Yep.
You don't really have democracy anymore. You don't really have choice.
Exactly.
You don't really have freedom.
That's right. Yeah, I think freedom is
Watch the first part of this podcast. I've only taped a few minutes of it. It's obviously, 2 hours and 38 minutes. And I'm going to tape less than 20 minutes. Some of the stuff that they're talking about right now has already been talked about in the previous part of the video. So you need to watch the entire 2 hours and almost 40 minutes to get the full context.
is fundamentally at stake in the election tomorrow, and we'll know. I think we'll know by the end of the day tomorrow. I don't think it's going to take. It's not going to be like days after the election. I think we'll know tomorrow.
I'm making this video on the eve of November 4th, and you can see my clock. It's 11:30 p.m. Tomorrow is November 5th, the deciding day for the vote of Trump versus Harris. Hopefully Trump wins. In this video, Elon Musk is extremely adamant about the fact that if Trump doesn't win, this is the last time we're going to have a true American free democracy vote. And he is an extremely brilliant human being, so I'm not going to try to argue against him. He knows a lot more about what's going on than I do. In his opinion, we need to vote for Trump to save America right now. And if we don't elect Trump, then America as we know it will be deceased. Watch this Joe Rogan podcast for the full description of what Elon says. I'm only taping roughly 20 minutes of 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Optimistic?
I'm currently optimistic, but the biggest factor here is that men need to vote. That is the biggest issue. So I don't know what the reason is, but men just vote at a much lower rate than women.
I think it's like 9%, right? Someone just told me that today.
It's a big difference. I'm just like saying as a message to the men out there, vote like your life depends on it, because I think it does. Vote tomorrow like your life depends on it. Nothing is more
Damn
important.
straight. Thank you, Elon.
I agree.
Yeah.
Listen, man, thank you for
Joe.
being here. I know you're busy as fuck, so I really appreciate your time. And
Mhm.
again, I thank you so much for buying Twitter, because I really do believe that you've changed the course of history. I really do
Absolutely
think
true.
you've created a pathway where people can actually express themselves and actually exchange information that
Watch
really
the full
didn't
video
exist
for his
before. And I think
explanation
it
on
was
how that
dangerous.
works on Twitter.
It is dangerous. Hopefully I live long enough to see my kids grow up and people on Mars.
That'd be cool.
That's all I'm asking for here.
I don't think that's too much down.
That's weird, but okay.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Appreciate you.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Bye.